Many of you may be wondering, why did the College of Law close its doors in the first place? Well, the answer isn't simple. However, it's deeply rooted in the racist history of Florida. There was a man by the name of Virgil Hawkins. Virgil Hawkins was a black man who applied for admission to the University of Florida's College of Law. However, he was denied admission on the basis of race. He took his case to the Florida Supreme Court, where they argued that separate but equal was alive and well in Florida and gave it broad interpretation. The Florida legislature went as far as to purchase brand new books for the Florida A&M College of Law to bolster its claims that Virgil Hawkins would be allowed to get a fair education at the College of Law at FAMU. However, Virgil took his case all the way to the United States Supreme Court. This was a week after the Brown decision. The United States Supreme Court sent his case back to Florida for them to make a ruling consistent with their Brown decision. The year was 1958, and the University of Florida had just desegregated its law school. That's when Florida Supreme Court Justice Roberts, who had always opposed Hawkins' admission to the University of Florida, commenced a campaign to close down the law school at Florida A&M University. Since the charade of separate but equal had been struck down, Justice Roberts apparently did not see the need for a black state university to have its own law school. After all, Florida A&M's existence was justified by the condition of separate but equal. Justice Roberts began a campaign to establish a new law school at Florida State University. When the effort succeeded, Florida State University received all of Florida A&M's university's law library and its funding, but hired none of its law professors and none of its staff. When FSU's new library opened, many of the books still contained the seal of Florida A&M University College of Law. They were books that were purchased solely to bolster Florida's claim that it could provide a separate but equal education for Virgil Hawkins. In gratitude for his work on the establishment of a new law school at Florida State University, the law library is named B.K. Roberts Hall.
This is our challenge, to build that homeland of the free. As the descendants of those who yearned for freedom, as the people who rose up to demand freedom, as the young people who today still defiantly march to preserve freedom, let us not be among those who deny it. To anyone now under attack because of their color, their nationality, their ethnicity, their religion, or their sexual preference, let us celebrate our history so that they may see their future, that they know that they're not alone, that we all join our hearts and our hands. Black hands, white hands, Asian hands, brown hands, Muslims hands, Jewish hands, and Christian hands. In this struggle together, that we are united, we are strong, we are fearless, we have won. We are one. Let us, as Langston Hughes once implored, oh, let America be America again, the land that never has been yet, and yet be the land where every man is free, the land that's mine, the poor man's, Indians, Negroes, me, you, whose sweat and blood, whose faith and pain, whose hand at the foundry, whose plow in the rain, must bring back our mighty dream again. Oh yes, I say it plain, America never was America to me, and yet I swear this oath today, America will be.
From 1949 to 1969, when the FAMU College of Law closed its doors, it graduated 57 distinguished students. Of those 57, Arthenia Joyner stands out as a shining star. She's practiced law longer than any black female in Florida State's history. In 1995, Joyner was appointed by then-President Bill Clinton to serve as the American representative for the United Nations Fourth World Conference on Women in Beijing. In 2000, Joyner ran for a seat in the Florida House of Representatives in the 59th District, which included Brandon and downtown Tampa. Joyner defeated her opponent, winning the vote by 71%. When Joyner ran for re-election in 2002, she ran on the platform that the government should do more to care for those that are most in need in society. She won re-election by a landslide, receiving 89% of the vote. She was reelected without opposition in 2004. Since 2007, Joyner has been in the Florida State Senate and served as the minority leader of the Senate until 2016, when she completed her service. In an interview with the Florida Bar News, Joyner is quoted saying that her law school experience has come full circle since its reestablishment. Last year, Arthenia Joyner spoke at the FAMU College of Law's hooding ceremony. She has been long known as a pioneer for civil rights and gender equality in the state of Florida. In 2015, she was inducted into the FAMU College of Law's Hall of Fame for her commitment to FAMU and for her service to the community. Joyner is FAMU College of Law.
Here at the College of Law, we're honored to have faculty and staff who have made history. We have Professor Mitchell, who was instrumental in the reestablishing of the College of Law here in Orlando.
Well, the College of Law was created in 1949 exclusively for the purpose of keeping the University of Florida segregated and all the schools in Florida segregated because of the Florida Constitution. We lasted until about 1968, and once it was clear, it became the law of the land that all Florida schools had to be integrated. I think the first one, the University of Florida, was in 1965 or so. So they fought for a long period of time to keep them from being integrated. And once they started threatening federal funds and saying you have to follow the Brown versus Board decision and other decisions that were back in the 50s, they decided, okay, we're going to close the FAMU College of Law. And every time since then, universities have the opportunity to get new academic programs. And with Dr. Humphreys, fortunately his own very son, Dr. Humphreys Jr., being an attorney, he was here during the time that the law school existed. He decided it was time to have the law school return to Florida A&M. And so starting as early as, I think in 1988 or so, every 5 years you have to ask for your new academic programs. He made that request from the 80s forward. And they kept telling us no. But he had in his mind when he selected myself, he selected Bishop Hollifield. And so Bishop Hollifield, the general counsel at the time, was a Harvard Law grad and a FAMU undergrad. He said, sure, I'll do it if I could get Reggie and others to help me do it. And so from that point forward, right after I graduated, we started working on getting the College of Law back. And every 5 years, we'd make the case, we deserve it. You look at the number of black attorneys in the state of Florida and what's produced by all the other schools in Florida, it's not enough according to the population and other statistics. And so every 5 years, they would turn us down, but then they would try something different. First time they turned us down, they said, okay, but we're going to create more law school scholarships at the two public universities. Right. So the Virgil Hawkins Scholarship. So University of Florida, Florida State. After 5 years, instead of going up, the numbers went down for black attorneys. Hispanics, I think, went up. And so, okay, that didn't work. We're going to try another one. We're going to, instead of being just the public law schools, we're going to be public and private law schools. Tried it again, numbers went down. So they didn't say, okay, last time we're going to try public schools, private schools, law scholarships, and undergraduate scholarships because we need to increase the pipeline. So they created the Minority Participation in Legal Education program. And so they were going to increase the pipeline of students even interested in law school with undergraduate scholarships that were similar to the public Thurgood Marshall Scholarship, but they created it even more for students specifically to go to law school. After we got the numbers back in after 5 years, numbers still went down. So finally, and it was in 2000, where we're at Florida State University Grand Ballroom in their stadium now. So they've used all the money. I don't know if you know how PICO works, but with PICO dollars, they basically took all the money of all the other the state universities. And normally you can't use PICOs to build stadiums, but they built classrooms and cafeteria, and they have the hospitality program, academic purposes. So they build a stadium above their academic classrooms with everybody's PICO money. And at one time you had the Hispanic caucus versus the Black caucus. The Black caucus was largely Democratic. The Hispanic caucus was largely, even though it was both bipartisan, it was largely the Cuban Hispanics in South Florida that made up the Republicans, part of the Hispanic caucus. And so you had powerful persons on both sides of the aisle, even though the legislature was controlled by the Republicans. But even when it was controlled by the Democrats, it was kind of like us versus them. And we asked for a law school at Florida A&M University, but so did Florida International University. And so it would always get down to a tie vote or lose by one vote first for one school versus another. Well, when we asked for two schools at that meeting, and that Board of Regents meeting, that was one of the last Board of Regents meetings where they told us no, and they said for budget reasons, we don't have the money for two law schools. And so I never forget, Senator Diaz-Balart, he was a state senator at the time, now a U.S. congressman. He kind of looked up, and he was the chair of the Senate Budget Committee. He was like, I can't believe you're gonna give us that excuse budget. You said you built this palatial stadium with the budget of everybody else's, and you kind of do what you want to do when you want to do it, but we clearly have shown a statistical need for more Hispanic and African American attorneys. Previously, we've been fighting each other. So they kind of met at that meeting, Al Lawson and Senator Diaz-Balart. They decided it was no longer all or nothing. I mean, it was no longer us versus them. It was both, all or nothing. Either we get both law schools or no law schools at all. So they left out of that meeting deciding that they were going to get in that legislature that year. They were going to join forces and get the two law schools. And it happened to be an election year. It happened to be the year that Jeb Bush needed his brother to get elected. Governor Jeb Bush at the time needed his brother George Bush to get elected president. So he couldn't turn down the Hispanics, the Cubans, the part of the Republican Party. You had Eleanor Ross Lehtinen in Congress. You had his Senator Diaz-Balart's brother, Lincoln Diaz-Balart, in Congress. So a lot of people you couldn't just turn down. Right. And so you can't turn down the Hispanics, and the Democrats can't turn down the African Americans that wanted it back at Florida A&M without winning, because both parties want to win. And so it was because of that they made a decision that at the time Speaker was the president of Florida State University now, Speaker John Thrasher. He was Speaker Thrasher at the time. He didn't want a law school for FAMU, but he wanted a medical school for his alma mater. He probably knew at that time he wanted to be president of Florida State University. So the deal became, we knew we wanted to put the law school right here in Orlando. Commissioner Daisy Lynham flew us down and showed us this land right by I-4, right by the federal courthouse, right by everything that's perfectly located where it is now, and told her they'd give us these entire 2 acres right here along this corridor to gentrify the Paramore district, but you had libraries and everything else right around in the downtown district, so it was a perfect location. So once they knew it was going to go in Orlando, at the time, Senate President Tony Jennings, who was soon to be Lieutenant Governor Tony Jennings, we told her we wanted the law school right here in Orlando. So her number one priority, because it was a $35 million annual boom to Orlando, to put the law school right here in Orlando. And Speaker Thrasher's number one project was the medical school at Florida State. And so Jeb Bush and Speaker Thrasher got together and kind of were caught writing information on a napkin, but they had a meeting outside the sunshine where they set up the deal to end the Board of Regents, the ones that turned us down for 2 law schools, to end the Board of Regents and to put bills in for separate schools at Florida International and FAMU, and a medical school at FSU. So those became the final 2 bills of the legislature because neither side trusted the other. So the last bill passed in the 2000 legislature was the FAMU and the FIU law schools and the FSU medical school. And so that's how we got it back. I was one of those kids that knew as a kid I wanted to go to law school, and I'm like a 3rd generation FAMUan, so I knew I wanted to go to FAMU. All my life I kind of dreamed about Howard University, attending Howard Law School. It was time to go. FAMU didn't exist. Howard was private, and I didn't get any scholarships to go to Howard, so it became out of reach for me. But I knew schools like that. I wanted to be sort of the same thing that Thurgood Marshall was, surrounded by people who were immersed in the law as it related to my vested interests and can train me to be the best person for civil rights or whatever the case may be. So I didn't have that opportunity to go to Howard. I ended up going to the University of Minnesota free of charge. But then when I got back, As soon as I graduated, actually, before I went to law school, I was a pre-law advisor. I was connected to the general counsel at FAMU, and they had a chance. They were going after the FAMU College of Law back in the 80s, and I thought that was a dream opportunity to work on that and do research on that. So it was my job specifically to do all the research on the previous College of Law right after graduating. Imagine in '88, right after I graduated, my job as pre-law advisor, working on returning to FAMU College of Law. It had never been done before. When HBCU lost a program, it had it returned. So we made history in 2000 when we fought. And I kept joking with friends, it's gonna take us 10 years, but we gonna get this law school back, because every time they turn us down, life gets better for black people. Every time they turn us down, they gotta give us something. So we just keep on asking for it until eventually we wear them down and get what we're looking for, and that's what happened. In 30 years, we're gonna be like, the beauty of law schools and engineering programs and programs of that stature is their graduates have the wherewithal to make a difference in life. You know, it was the original plan back in the 49 to 68 for our graduates to become the judges, to become the legislators, to become the senators, and to know, armed with the knowledge of law, to do things for the betterment of African Americans. Now, when we had the reestablished College of Law, Jeb Bush instituted One Florida. So you can't just be focused only on blacks, but still within the mission of the statute that created the College of Law, it is still unapologetically our mission to increase the number of African American attorneys in the state of Florida. So now currently we're doing that more than all other law schools combined, increasing the number of black attorneys, but more so because we're diverse with Hispanics and whites and African Americans and Asians and others. We're one of the most diverse law schools in the country. Our graduates will one day be like other graduates of other schools and represent us well, be ambassadors of goodwill for us, take on the issues that are of interest to us that we can reach out to for the betterment of African Americans. And so without discriminating in any way, as One Florida required that we don't discriminate, but we're still, you know, HBCUs for whatever reason still attract African Americans because of its history. And so we're able to do things and do research and focus on issues that are of vested interest to African Americans.
I am FAMU Law.
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 I am FAMU Law.